Imagine being pushed to the very edge of despair, where every door is slammed in your face, every hope feels stolen, and all you have left is a single desperate plea. Please, save my daughter. This is not just the story of a poor single mother. This is about the moment her broken cry reached the ears of a man who owned everything. Power, money, respect. But nothing could prepare him for what happened next. Stay with me till the end, because what this billionaire did will leave you in tears and restore your faith in humanity. Late one stormy night, in a city where the lights of skyscrapers drowned out the stars, a young mother named Elena stood outside the cold, glass doors of a private hospital. Her daughter, barely 7 years old, was lying on a stretcher inside, fighting for her life. Pneumonia had taken hold of the little girl's frail body, and every breath sounded like a struggle against death itself. Elena clutched the doctor's hand and begged. But the answer was always the same, without a massive payment upfront. The surgery and treatment could not go forward. She had already sold her wedding ring, pawned the only piece of jewelry left from her mother, and borrowed until no one in her neighborhood could help anymore. Alone, abandoned by a husband who had vanished years earlier, she had nothing but her daughter and the will to fight for her. Her cries echoed through the sterile hallways, ignored by the nurses who had grown used to scenes like this. Just when her hope was about to collapse completely, fate intervened. A tall man in a perfectly tailored suit walked by, surrounded by assistants and security guards. His name was Alexander Hayes, a billionaire whose empire stretched across industries. Hotels, airlines, technology. To the world, he was untouchable. A man born into privilege who could bend circumstances to his will. But at that very moment, Elena's cry pierced through the thick armor of his indifference. He stopped, almost against his own nature, and turned toward the desperate mother. Please, save my daughter. Elena sobbed, her voice trembling under the weight of helplessness. Something inside Alexander stirred. He had seen desperation before, but this was different. Behind Elena's broken words was a love so raw, so unselfish, that it shook him. He instructed the doctors to do everything necessary immediately, no matter the cost, and walked away. To Elena, it felt like an angel had appeared and vanished in the same breath. She collapsed on the cold floor, tears of relief mixing with exhaustion. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to believe her daughter might live. But for Alexander, the story had only just begun. He could not shake off the image of the woman's trembling hands, her eyes swollen from sleepless nights, her clothes worn thin from poverty. He had saved lives with money before. Donations, charity funds, foundations. But something about this woman's plea stayed with him in a way nothing else had. What he didn't know then was that her fight, her pain, and her unwavering love would unravel layers of his own past that he had buried deep. Revealing wounds money could never heal. The next morning, Alexander found himself driving back to the hospital. He told himself it was just curiosity, maybe a sense of duty to check on the girl whose life he had saved. But deep down, it was something else. Something unexplainable that pulled him back. When he entered the pediatric ward, he saw Elena asleep in an old chair by her daughter's bed, still holding the child's tiny hand. The girl's chest rose and fell more steadily now, though tubes and monitors surrounded her. Alexander stood silently, watching the fragile beauty of a mother's love. He remembered his own childhood, one he rarely spoke about. His mother, too, had once been alone, struggling to raise him after his father abandoned them. He remembered her tears late at night when she thought he was asleep, the sacrifices she made, and the loneliness she endured. Success had buried those memories under layers of luxury and power. But Elena's plea ripped them back to the surface. For the first time in years, Alexander felt something deeper than profit, status, or pride. He felt compassion. Days turned into weeks as the girl slowly recovered. Alexander quietly covered every expense. But more than that, he began to spend time at the hospital, talking to Elena. He learned how she worked 2 jobs. Cleaning offices at night and serving tables during the day. Just to survive. He learned how her dream was never for herself but for her daughter. To give her a chance at education, a future beyond poverty. Her resilience inspired him in ways he hadn't expected. It wasn't just her daughter's life he had saved. It was his own heart he was rediscovering. As the bond grew, Alexander faced his own challenges. The media began to speculate why a billionaire was spending so much time with a poor single mother. His business partners raised eyebrows, reminding him of the empire he had to protect. But for the first time, Alexander didn't care. He realized that all the billions in his bank account had never given him peace. But the laughter of a little girl in recovery did. The turning point came when Elena tried to thank him, offering him the only thing she had. A locket she had cherished since childhood. He refused it, telling her, "You've already given me more than I could ever repay." In that moment, she didn't understand, but Alexander knew. He had been saved too. Saved from a life of emptiness. Saved by a mother's love that reminded him of his own roots. By the time the little girl walked out of the hospital, Alexander had made a decision that shocked everyone. He offered Elena a position in his company. Not as charity, but as recognition of her resilience and intelligence. He also launched a foundation in her daughter's name, dedicated to helping struggling single parents with medical care and education. What began as a single desperate cry in the night turned into a movement of hope that touched thousands of lives. And in the end, Elena whispered words that sealed the story in Alexander's heart forever. "You didn't just save my daughter. You saved me too." Sometimes it takes just one act of compassion to change not one life, but countless others. This story reminds us that love, sacrifice, and kindness have more power than money ever could. Because in the end, true wealth is not measured by what we keep, but by what we give.